Hello again, friends, and welcome back to another video from the Inquisitive channel. For those of you who are new, which most likely you are because from the recording of this video, it's only a week old since I established this channel on YouTube. This channel is all about helping you to learn that little bit extra so that you can achieve success and actually, more importantly, continue to develop onwards and upwards. At the moment, the channel is focusing on creating content for high school, secondary school, and college level biology. Okay, because it's only a week old, we have to start somewhere, and we're going to start off with this. Okay, so this is actually video number 5 in a series of videos looking at cells and organization. So please feel free to visit the channel and view the preceding 5 videos, in which we talked about cells in general, cell organelles. We talked about organelles specific to plants, such as chloroplast, the vacuole, and the cell wall. And then we looked at the differences between eukaryotes and prokaryotes. One of the longer term aims is to really curate this channel so that it contains all the content you need that covers all the syllabus in one place for ease of access to help you learn that little bit easier. In this video, we're going to focus on how animal cells specialize to perform specific functions, which is a form of adaptation. Before we get into that, because this channel is only just over a week old now, I would greatly appreciate your help in growing this channel. For that, it would be really appreciated if you could subscribe. Okay, consider subscribing. Hit the bell icon to make sure that you are notified of new videos. The aim is really to produce a couple of videos a week, and to drop a like if you think this video was useful to you. Okay. More importantly, though, I'd love some feedback. Okay. Give me some feedback so that I can help to grow this channel and sort of tailor this channel a bit better to your needs. Also, if you do have any questions regarding the content, if you don't quite understand something, do post some questions in the comment section. I will reply to questions as and when they come. Okay. Okay, so now that the formalities are out of the way, let's get down to business. Okay, so have you ever wondered how we're able to do so many different things? You know, we have eyes that are adapted for us to see. We have a tongue whereby we can sense all kinds of tastes, and we can train our tongues to decipher specific subtle taste differences rather. We have ears, okay, by which we can hear. We have hands or skin in general, whereby we can feel, touch, pressure. We can sense if something is cold or warm, if something hurts. And we have our nose, okay, whereby we can smell all kinds of different smells. Just like the tongue can differentiate between many different types of tastes, the nose is designed to capture all kinds of different smells. So we can do all these different things and many more things, all because we have specialized cells, okay, that have been adapted to perform particular functions. It's amazing to think that from a simple sperm and an egg, that such a complicated multicellular organism like us can be produced, that's able to do so many different complex tasks, that's able to survive in such a dangerous world with hazards left, right, and center. We're able to see, smell, feel, taste all kinds of potentially life-threatening hazards. So it's really mind blowing when you put your mind to it, to understand how single cells, okay, how single cells work together to form important tissues, and how these tissues work and are assembled to form organs, and how all these organs come together, work together to give us all these tremendous characteristics. Okay, so let's look at some of the examples of these cells with specific functions, specific characteristics and specific functions. It all starts off with a sperm meeting an egg and the egg being fertilized by the sperm. Okay, that sperm then, or rather the fertilized egg, starts to divide. And it divides hundreds and hundreds of times. It goes from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32. So it's doubling every single time. And after a certain period of time, what you get is just a great big ball of cells. Okay, and this is when they start to differentiate. Okay, this is when they start to undergo cell differentiation. And what's actually happening? So what's actually happening during cell differentiation is really cells, or rather certain cells, switching on certain genes and switching off certain genes, and other cells having their own pattern of switching on and switching off genes. And then what you get then, because those cells start to switch on and switch genes on and off, or different genes on and off, cells start to become different. Okay, both physically and functionally. Okay, so you get cells differentiate into neurons or nerve cells, which give rise to the nerve cells in the brain. Okay, cells differentiate into epithelial cells or enterocytes, in this case, that form the intestines. They can differentiate into cells that make up the liver, cells that make up muscle or cardiac muscle, cells that make up bone tissue. Okay, so you can see just the differences, not just functionally, but structurally, how different they are. You've got something quite soft to something that's brittle and hard. Okay, so cell differentiation gives rise to these different cell types. So you can see now, can't you, that how cell differentiation gives rise to specializations. Okay, so you've got this nerve cell here, which looks quite different, a lot different to any other cell type. Okay. Okay, so let's look at specific specific adaptations then. Let's look at nerve cells. Okay, so what adaptations do they have? Well, first of all, let's look at the function of nerve cells. The function of a nerve cell is basically to pick up a signal, okay, and then pass it on to the next cell as quickly as possible. So that's their main function, is to pass on messages, but do so extremely quickly. Okay, so let's take an example of where speed is of the essence, where speed is a crucial factor. Let's say someone has thrown something and is heading towards your eye. Okay, now you need to close the eye as quickly as possible, and this is what actually happens. It's a nervous reaction, it's a reflex action rather, and it's mediated by nerves. Okay, so the nerves are quickly communicating with muscle cells which control the eyelid to enable the eyelid to close as quickly as possible. Okay, so to ensure that we have this extremely quick method of communication, okay, we need something that actually travels really fast, and that is electricity. Electricity travels really fast, and so neurons are specially adapted to generate electrical impulses. Okay, because it's the only thing that can travel that quickly, that's actually needed for quick reaction times. Okay, so that's one specialization, that nerve cells generate electrical impulses. Another feature, another structural feature, is that nerve cells communicate with many other neurons. Okay, so this nerve cell could be in the brain, so it's communicating with other neurons from the brain. Okay, so it's basically picking up different messages from different neurons of the brain, and it has to be able to do that. Okay, to pick up as many signals from different cells in the brain. So it does. It has these extensions. These kind of almost look like antenna. Okay, but these are the structural features which pick up signals, and these are called dendrites. Okay, so these are what receive messages. Okay, So we've talked about generating the electrical impulse. We've talked about being able to receive messages. But that message then has to be delivered to another destination. Okay. Now that destination could be many cells away. So this axon has to be very long. And in some cases, in some nerve cells, the axons are very long. Okay. If we're looking at if we're looking at cells from the animal kingdom, okay, looking at nerve cells from the animal kingdom, if we look at, say, something like a blue whale, the biggest animal in the world, okay, what you'll find is that the axons from a blue whale can be as long as 25 meters. Okay, so it's extremely long. So a single cell, we talked about cells being, eukaryotic cells being up to 100 micrometers, but because of the special extension, because of the special axon, in blue whales, for example, or large animals, the axon can be very, very long indeed. Another specialization of nerve cells is that the axon is covered with a fatty substance called myelin. Not all nerve cells will have this, okay, but a lot of cells which require the speed to be extremely quick, okay, they require myelin. They require the axon to be covered in myelin. Myelin is a fatty substance, and it helps to insulate the electrical signal. Okay, so it prevents the electrical signal from escaping and forces it to travel down the axon. This is important because when we think about diseases such as multiple sclerosis, okay, that's because of an autoimmune condition where your own immune cells have sort of decided to attack the myelin. So the myelin is removed. The electrical impulse doesn't travel down the axon as quickly as it should, and that presents itself as a disease, and in this case, most commonly as multiple sclerosis. Okay, so that's the importance of myelin and the axon. Now, once the signal has been received and the electrical impulse is generated and it's being sent down the axon, that message has to be received by another cell, whether it's another nerve cell or whether it's a muscle cell. Okay. Now, when it comes to the end of a nerve cell, the ends of nerve cells are called axon termini or synapses. Okay, synapse is the immediate part of the axon terminal which communicates with the next cell. Okay, so there's a physical gap here between the axon termini and the next cell. So there's a physical gap, and that gap has to be breached in order for it to communicate with the next cell, and that's breached by the release of neurotransmitters. Okay, so the synapse would release a neurotransmitter. That neurotransmitter would be obviously a chemical. That chemical would then float in between the synapse to the cell, to the next cell, and then it would communicate with the next cell. Okay, and it needs to have many synapses to be able to communicate with a large proportion of the cell. It might not just be one cell, it could be several cells. Okay, so one synapse could communicate with one cell, another synapse could communicate with another cell. Okay, so it needs as many synapses as possible. Okay, so there you are. Okay, so those are the four specializations of nerve cells which allow it to function in the way it should. So it's got the dendrites to pick up as many signals as possible. It's got the ability to generate electrical impulses. It's got the ability to travel far distances because of the long length of the axon. Okay, and it's got the ability to pass on the message through the release of neurotransmitters. Okay, now you can imagine all these processes require a lot of energy. Okay, and indeed it does. And this energy demand is met by a huge amount of mitochondria in nerve cells. Okay, so nerve cells do have lots of mitochondria. So that's another kind of adaptation, another kind of specialization. So what you'll find is that a lot of the cells which require a lot of energy, they do tend to have a lot more mitochondria than the average cell. Okay, so muscle cells will have lots of mitochondria because they need to generate lots of movement, okay, which requires lots of energy. Okay, so there you are. So those are the specializations of a nerve cell. Okay, Okay, so talking of muscle cells, there are three main muscle cell types. There's the muscle that exists in the heart, the cardiac muscle. There's muscle that's attached to bones, skeletal muscle, and smooth muscle, which you'll find in many places, like the outside of the stomach, the outside of the whole digestive tract. This special muscle helps to move food along, for example. It helps. You can also find smooth muscle attached to arteries and large blood vessels, which helps to contract and dilate blood vessels. Okay, so what you'll find is that the main function of muscle cells is to facilitate movement, okay, locomotion. That's their main function. So what special adaptations do they have? Well, even if you just look at the cells, you can see, at least in cardiac muscles and skeletal muscles, that there's these stripes. You can see dark and light stripes. Okay, so this is because there are special proteins which slide against each other to allow this movement to happen. Okay, so both cardiac muscle and skeletal muscle are striated. That's not to say that the same proteins don't exist in smooth muscle. In smooth muscle, they also exist, but the way they're arranged is a bit different, so they don't appear as striated. Okay, so muscle cells, what adaptations do they have? What specializations do they have to allow this special feature of movement? Okay, now muscle cells contract and relax, so that's one particular major feature of muscle cells, that they can contract and they can relax. Okay, now if you extend that, muscle cells are attached to bones through ligaments. Okay, so muscle contraction and relaxation moves these ligaments, which are attached to the bones, and so therefore bones move through the joints. Okay, so this is what allows movement. Okay, now the special proteins that I mentioned, which cause those striations, those stripes. Okay, the proteins in question are actin and myosin. So actin, myosin. Okay, and it's these proteins which slide against each other. So actin is physically linked to the cell membrane. Okay, so when it relaxes, when it interacts with myosin, okay, it can pull the cell together when it's contracting, and then relax it, then let it go when it's relaxing, and this is what allows movement at the cellular level. Okay. Now, another thing what you'll find is that, like I mentioned in the slide when I was talking about nerve cells, okay, this whole process of movement is a very high energy demanding process. Okay, now to meet those demands, what you'll find is that there's a lot more mitochondria to produce the energy needed for this movement. Okay, so you find a lot more mitochondria in muscle cells. Another thing that you'll find is a storage of glycogen. Muscle cells can store glycogen. Now, glycogen is basically it's a chain of glucose. Okay, so it's glucose molecules joined together. Okay, and normally you would find lots of this in the liver. Okay, so this is glycogen is stored in the liver, but it's also stored in muscle as well. Okay, so a lot of glycogen stored in muscle, and so it's this high concentration of mitochondria together, coupled with the high amount of glycogen stored in muscle, that allows muscles to work as well as they do. Okay, so the next specialized cell I wanted to mention was the sperm cell. Okay, now you can already tell that the sperm cell has many adaptations or many specializations that allow it to do what it's supposed to do, which is to swim and meet the egg, okay, and then fertilize it. Now, a sperm cell is about 50 micrometers long from head to toe, or from head to tail, tip of tail is about 50 micrometers long, okay. Now, when you consider how small they are and how much they have to travel, okay, so the tip of the cervix all the way to the egg is about 18 centimeters, and that's about 3,600 times the length of the sperm itself. Okay, so it's got a long distance to travel. Okay, and the propulsion speed of the sperm cell, okay, gives it actually travels quite quickly. It's about 2.5 centimeters per 15 minutes. Okay, so when you consider actually the medium it has to swim in and how viscous it is, that's quite good going. Okay, and the fastest swimmers, the fastest sperms get to the egg in about 45 minutes. Okay, so then what are the special features then allow the sperm cells to actually do what they're supposed to do, which is to swim all the way to the egg and get inside? Okay, so first of all, it has to swim. So it has to have a propulsion system. So in order to do that, it does have this flagellated tail, which is powered by energy. Okay, that's provided by the mitochondria in the middle section. Okay, so the middle section is a specially adapted part of the sperm, which is packed with mitochondria to fuel the energy needed for the flagellated tail to help with propulsion. Okay, it's also got a large nucleus. Okay, now that doesn't mean it's got more DNA in. It's actually got less, because remember it's 23 chromosomes come from the sperm, 23 chromosomes come from the egg to give the full complement of 46. So a standard cell, not a sperm cell, but a standard cell in your body would have 46 chromosomes. But it's a large nucleus in comparison to the width of the cell body of the sperm cell. So it just looks big. Okay. Uh, okay. And once it meets the egg, okay, it can't physically get inside the cell just through a direct impact. Okay. When it meets the egg, it releases special enzymes, special proteins which can break down the outer layers of the egg. Okay. And that part, the tip of the sperm cell, is called the acrosome. Okay. And this is where the digestive enzymes are stored. Okay, so those are the specialized features which give sperm cells the ability to swim and penetrate, swim to the egg and penetrate it once it's there. Okay, so the last cell I wanted to talk about was the red blood cell, the erythrocyte. Okay, now the main function of the red blood cell is to pick up and carry oxygen to all cells. It's got other functions as well, but that's its main function. Okay, now in order to pick up oxygen, okay, it's got this special protein complex called hemoglobin. Okay, so this red blood cells they're packed with hemoglobin. Okay, and it's this that's able to pick up oxygen from the lungs and then deliver it to all the cells in the body. Okay, now in order to carry out this main function of carrying oxygen to all cells, but what you don't want is anything impeding that. Okay, so inside a red blood cell, what you'll find is that there's actually no nucleus. Okay, so red blood cells do have they can't replicate, okay, because they have no nucleus. Okay, so they have a lifespan of about 6 months. After about 6 months, they're way past their shelf life, and then they're recycled. Okay, so because they have no nucleus, that gives more space for hemoglobin. Okay, so you have a lot more hemoglobin in red blood cells, but you would have a lot less if there was a nucleus there. Okay, so that's another specialization. Another thing is that they're quite flexible, given it its concave shape. Okay, and also a special cell membrane as well. It's able to squeeze through very narrow blood vessels. Okay, blood vessels which are narrower than itself. Okay, because the red blood cell can actually, because it's so flexible, it can squeeze through. It can bend and squeeze through much narrower blood vessels, such as capillaries. Okay, now I could go on and talk about many other cell types. Okay, but I think at the level of secondary school and colleges, I think this is about right. Okay, we could talk about special epithelial cells, special kidney cells, specialized liver cells, etc. Okay, but I think this is enough. Okay, so I guess we'll stop it there. So just to finish off, I'd like to say thanks for getting to this stage. Okay, so it's been 24 minutes. I'm sure most of you probably haven't been through the whole 24 minutes. You probably paused it and waited for another time. But thanks for getting to the end. I would love it if you would leave a comment. Okay. And if there's anything that you don't quite understand or you want clarity over, post some questions. Like I said, I always do answer questions, and please consider subscribing. Okay. I am curating this channel to produce more and more videos so that we can complete the syllabus, so that we have everything in one channel. Okay. Press the bell icon to get notifications, and if you think this video was useful, please drop a like. Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye. Stay safe. All the best. Bye bye.